What's going on? How's everybody doing today? Hope everybody's having a good day so far, good week. Um, we're here to talk about some Indiana football because you're coming off of one of the biggest weekends so far, or biggest months easily in Indiana football history. Just took down Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. You're now Big Ten champions. You, your quarterback Fernando Mendoza just won a Heisman Trophy. There's major hype going around this Indiana program. Now you get a first round bye in the college football playoffs. You have a legit shot to go win a national title. I've loved watching this Indiana team this year. I think you're in a position now where even no matter what happens in the playoffs, you got to look at Coach Signetti and say this guy is maybe the best coach of college football. Is that crazy to say? I don't know. I don't know if it is. He came in and flipped this Indiana program around like I don't think anybody else could in the country. I was like I've never seen any coach in the nation do any work like this on a program like Indiana. But anyways, like I said, your quarterback just won a Heisman Trophy. After this year, he's probably going to be the number one pick in the NFL draft. That leaves you with some doubt at the quarterback position for next year in 2026 because, like I said, you're going to have a lot of hype going into next year. No matter what happens this year, you're going to need to replace a quarterback and you're going to have to do it at a pretty fair level. So, some things I will mention before we get into some candidates is we have seen Coach Signetti so far. Curt Signetti has not necessarily went out and made a big splash at quarterback. I don't think Fernando Mendoza was that big of a splash. If you look at it right now, seems like it was a splash. At the time, it wasn't a massive splash like some of these other names in the portal. So I do have some splashy names in here, but I don't know if Signetti will actually go out and make a big splash because he has shown he could develop these non-splashy players at an extremely high level like he has done Fernando Mendoza. So keep that in mind when I go through this. So the number one candidate that we're going to talk about, his brother just won a Heisman Trophy. Alberto Mendoza, brother of Fernando Mendoza. I don't know if Signetti is going to start Alberto off the rip next year. I know he's the backup right now. Uh, just because his brother is Fernando Mendoza doesn't mean he's going to play like Fernando Mendoza. Not saying he couldn't. For all I know, he can go out there and be just like Fernando Mendoza or better. Not saying he can't. He was a three-star recruit out of high school, which stars don't mean anything in my opinion, and Fernando Mendoza also showed that. Still super young. He is a freshman. We saw him get a few reps this season, not too much. In his reps, he looked pretty solid. So I do think there is a possibility that Alberto Mendoza could be the quarterback starting next year for the Hoosiers. But one splash that you can go get because Indiana is going to be a hot portal destination, especially for quarterbacks, because they just saw what happened with Fernando Mendoza. He got he got developed at an extremely high level. Now you have Sam Levitt. Sam Levitt coming off a breakout season, took Arizona State to the college football playoffs. Didn't have much resources around him other than Jordan Tyson, a very good receiver. But at Indiana, you'll have multiple good receivers as we've seen this year. Like they're developing players at every single position group at a very high level. Sam Levitt would easily bounce right into Indiana and have more skill around him or more talent around him than he did at Arizona State. And that's not a knock on Arizona State because I'm loving what Kenny Dillingham is doing with the Arizona State program. I think he's killed it over there. The Indiana program is on the rise. And I think it's no joke. I think it's no joke whatsoever. It wouldn't shock me at all. If you look back a few years ago, you might think it's crazy that Indiana is in the mix for one of, or actually the top quarterback in the entire transfer portal. If you look at it now today, it's not that crazy. Not that crazy whatsoever. Wouldn't shock me if you hear Sam Levitt's name thrown around. And if you do get him, he's undoubtedly number one quarterback next year. He's probably going to be a first round pick next year. He was getting first round buzz this year, dealt with some injuries, but yeah, next year he's going to end up at a big spot, and Indiana will have to come up off some money to get him. I've heard he's looking for a good bit. Now the next one that we're going to talk about is Dylan Raiola. I know there are some mixed opinions on Dylan Raiola. I do think he gets too much hate due to the Patrick Mahomes comparison. I think Dylan Raiola has a high ceiling. I think he's a good quarterback, and I think Indiana would be the perfect spot for him in terms of development. We saw it. I'm going to keep referencing it because what we saw with Fernando Mendoza this year was absolutely incredible. I think Dylan Raiola could be similar to that. Dylan Raiola has the pocket passing skills. I don't think he's quite as mobile as what he wants to be. He is a bigger guy, 6'3", 230. He's had an up and down career at Nebraska. You've seen the flashes. He's not had that great of an offensive line at Nebraska this entire time. If you send him to Indiana, you're probably going to have much better offensive line to work behind there. I think it will be a great fit, and I think Indiana will be very dangerous with Dylan Raiola. I don't know if he will come up in the conversations. I know he is talking to Oregon right now, so that is a Big Ten team to watch out for. So the Big Ten is an option for Raiola, as he was already played there. So next one that we're going to talk about seems like a Curt Signetti move to me. That is Brendan Sorsby. You look at, I know he's one of the top quarterbacks in the country right now, in the transfer portal at least. He's not that flashy of a name. So if you look at him from an outsider perspective that don't really pay much close attention to college football, you're not going to see Brendan Sorsby as a super hot name in the portal when he actually is. And I think most hardcore college football fans know that. So there was a point last year with Cincinnati that he looked like a top 15 quarterback or top 10 to 15 quarterback in the country. You can maybe even put him higher. He was getting some first round NFL draft buzz there for a little bit. He went and played Utah in Utah. That was at Utah. And after that, it just kind of went downhill. He had a rough game there, and then the rest of the season just didn't really go Sorsby's way. So there was a lot of speculation that he would hit the portal, and he actually did yesterday or 2 days ago. So I could see Indiana in the mix here. I do think that he'll end up at Texas Tech. If he doesn't end up at Texas Tech, I think Indiana will be one of the top spots because I don't think he's going to cost a fortune to get. Like you're going to have to pay him a pretty penny, obviously. Not going to cost too much, and I think you're getting a great player there who can take his games to the next level with a program like Indiana. So the next one that I'm going to talk about is Lincoln Kienholz. So you might be wondering why take a backup from Ohio State. Well, he, according to a lot of people, he almost he was like toe to toe with Julian Sayin coming out of camp to get the quarterback one job. So he was in a quarterback battle with Julian Sayin throughout the whole camp. Nobody really knew who QB1 was gonna be in at Ohio State this year. Lincoln Kienholz did lose the job to Sayin, but if you look at what Sayin's doing this year, even you go toe to toe with Julian Sayin, you're doing something right because Sayin has been incredible all year. So I think Lincoln Kienholz, he's going to get a starting quarterback job somewhere next year. I think if he does enter the portal, which I don't believe he's in the portal quite yet, seems likely he will be. I think whoever gets him will end up starting him. I think his market's going to be pretty big. And I could see Indiana in the mix because another one. I don't think he's going to be too expensive. And I think you're getting an outstanding player there based off of what we hear. The next one is the same situation as Kenny Minchey. Kenny Minchey was a very highly touted quarterback out of high school. Um, Ended up going to Notre Dame and lost the job to CJ Carr. This was another one. Quarterback battle with CJ Carr in camp. CJ Carr has looked pretty good this year. I will say he's looked pretty good this year. There were a lot of insiders at Notre Dame seeing that Kenny Minchey won this quarterback battle in camp. A lot of the Notre Dame insiders and fans that were getting to watch these practices and see these quarterbacks battle in camp to get the starting job, most of them were saying it is Kenny Minchey's job to lose because he was kind of dominating that camp. So you're hearing nothing but good things coming from the Notre Dame parties. And this is another one. I think because of that, Kenny Minchey, he's in the portal already. And I think because of everything that we heard during the camp, we're going to have a pretty strong market for Kenny Minchey. There's going to be a strong market, and Indiana is probably one of the top teams that I would link him to personally. I think the fit is there, and it seems like a Curt Signetti move. Like I said, he gets these guys that he thinks he can come in and develop, and Kenny Minchey, there's really no better candidate than Kenny Minchey to do that, in my opinion, unless you want to go with Lincoln Kienholz or Brendan Sorsby. The next one we're going to talk about, he's not yet in the transfer portal, a lot of rumors going around right now that he will be. And that is Josh Hoover. Josh Hoover is one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the country, in my opinion. He's been in a pretty not so great situation at TCU. When when the offense is clicking at all cylinders, Josh Hoover looks like one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He has an amazing deep ball. If you go back and look at his first game of the season against was it North Carolina? Yeah, North Carolina. Outstanding. Outstanding. Even last year, if you look at TCU last year in 2024, Josh Hoover always stood out to me. Every time I would watch him, he would stand out. Get this kid in the right situation, I think you have a serious contender right here. I think that even if he did go pro this year, which I don't think he is, if he went pro this year, I think this would be one of the guys that gets he's a late riser in the draft if he did go pro. Therefore, I don't think he's going to go pro. If he doesn't go pro, most likely going to be in the portal. I think Indiana would be a good spot for him again. Like I said, very high ceiling. Get him in the right situation. He's already shown that he is a good quarterback. Just got to get him in the right situation. He's got to find a good fit for him. I think Indiana, like I said, they're going to be one of the top teams. I know I've said the same thing over and over. They're going to be a hot commodity in the quarterback market because simply what they did this year. Quarterbacks want to go somewhere. First off, they want to win a Heisman Trophy. They want to get drafted. They want to go to the college football playoffs. They want to contend for a national championship. If you go to Indiana, you get all four of those. Fernando Mendoza probably came in thinking the same thing. Guess what? He's in the fight for a national championship right now. He's a Big Ten champ already. He's a Heisman Trophy winner. He's probably going to go number one in the draft. What else can you ask for? That's all a quarterback wants. I think Josh Hoover is a Fernando Mendoza type-ish guy that you can go get out of the transfer portal next year. And I absolutely love the fit there. So that is all that I have for Indiana candidates to be quarterback one next year. If you're an Indiana fan, let me know in the comments who you would want, or if I missed anybody who you think you guys could go after. Also, let me know if you think you will go out there and make a splash, or if you will get one of these more developmental, low-key guys that I think Curt Signetti has done an amazing job with um, in both of his years at Indiana. So I'm going to be doing a lot more Indiana content as we go through the college football playoffs. So if you're an Indiana fan and you did enjoy this video, consider subscribing to the channel. I would greatly appreciate that. And stay tuned for the next ones because we have a lot more coming. So everybody have a happy holidays if you're not watching me before Christmas. And stay tuned for the next one. Catch you on the next one. Peace.